Welcome to DT tutorial. In this video, we're looking at classification of living things. Classification of living things. And the classification of living things is also known as taxonomy. So classification of living things, taxonomy, they are two same things. They are two same things that mean the same thing. Classification of living things is also known as taxonomy. So what is taxonomy? Taxonomy is the science of naming, describing, and classifying organisms. It is the science of naming. So in taxonomy, we name living things, we describe them, and we also classify them. So it is the science of naming, of describing, and of classifying organisms. It is the science of naming, describing, and classifying organisms. We can also say that taxonomy is a science of classifying living things based on their structural, genetic, and cellular composition. So in taxonomy, the hallmark is classification. So we can classify living things based on their structural, that is how they look like, based on their genetics or what their genetic material is composed of, and based on their cellular composition, the things that makes up their cell. So taxonomy is the science of classifying living things based on structural, genetic, and cellular composition. So these are living things, these are living organisms. So if we are to classify these living organisms, the bird, the crocodile, the fish, we can classify them as animals. While these two plants, we can classify them as plants. So the science of classifying these living organisms is what taxonomy is all about. So taxonomy is the science of naming them. So we can name these organisms from the knowledge of taxonomy. So it is the science of naming, describing, and classifying organisms. We can also say that taxonomy is the science of classifying living things based on their structural, genetic, and cellular composition. So we can classify them based on their structure, how they look. We can classify them based on their genes, and we can also classify them based on their cellular composition, what makes up their cell. There are two major classification systems in biology. The two major classification systems are Carl Linnaeus system of classification and the modern system of classification. These are the two major systems of classification in biology. The two major systems of classifying living organisms. Carl Linnaeus system of classification and the modern system of classification. So whether it is the Carl Linnaeus system of classification or the modern system of classification, living things are classified into 7 taxa. So the taxa here is like a group. So in other words, living organisms are classified into 7 groups. The taxa is from the taxonomy. So they are classified into 7 taxa. And the 7 taxa are kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. And they are arranged in this order. So we can use this acronym here to remember the 7 taxa, or in other words, to remember the 7 groups. So the acronym is King Philip came over for good soup. King Philip came over for good soup. So the king is for the kingdom, Philip is for the phylum, came is for the class, over order, the for is for the family, good is for genus, and the soup is for the species. So these are the 7 taxa in classification of living organisms. So whether it is the Carl Linnaeus system of classification or the modern system of classification, living organisms are usually classified into these 7 taxa. So these are the 7 taxa: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Then another important thing that should be noted here is that as you progress from the kingdom to the species, as you progress from kingdom to species, the number of organisms start decreasing. So there will be a decrease in the number of organisms from kingdom to the least, which is species. So species has the least number of organisms. It has the smallest number of organisms. So we have the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. These are the 7 taxa in the classification of living things. We can use this acronym King Philip came over for good soup to remember the 7 taxa. So like I said, the taxa or the group that contains the least number of organisms is the species, while the taxa that contains more number of organisms is the kingdom. So this is very important. So like I said before, living organisms or living things are classified into 7 taxa. In other words, they are classified into 7 groups. And the 7 taxa, the 7 classes or the 7 group are kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. And like I said, as we progress from the top to the bottom, the number of organisms they start decreasing. So where we have the least or the smallest number of organisms is in the species, and where we have the taxa where we have the largest number of organisms is in the kingdom. And one more important thing to be noted from these 7 taxa is that we can get the binomial nomenclature of the organism we're talking about, of any organism we're classifying. The binomial nomenclature is a system of naming living things. Bi means two, nomial means name, while nomenclature is name. So we can get the binomial nomenclature of any particular organism from these 7 taxa. So, like I said, taxonomy is the science of naming, describing, and classifying organisms. It is the science of naming, describing, and classifying organisms. So we don't just classify living organisms in taxonomy, we also name them and describe them as well. So the binomial nomenclature, like I said, bi means two, nomia means name, while nomenclature means naming. So binomial nomenclature is usually from the genus and the species. So the genus name is known as the generic name, which comes first, while the species name is the species name that comes after the generic name. So let's look at the taxonomy of man and domestic cat. So like I said, living organisms are classified into 7 taxa, and these are the 7 taxa: the kingdom, the phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. So man belongs to the kingdom Animalia, it belongs to the phylum Chordata, belongs to the class Mammalia, belongs to the order Primates, belongs to the family Hominidae, belongs to the genus Homo, and belongs to the species Sapiens. So we can say that the biological name of man is Homo sapiens. So one name is from the generic name, while the other name is the species name. Then this is the classification of domestic cat. Cat belongs to the kingdom Animalia, belongs to the phylum Chordata, to the class Mammalia, belongs to the order Carnivora, belongs to the family Felidae, belongs to the genus Felis, and belongs to the species domestica, Felis domestica. So we can say that the botanical name of cat is Felis domestica. Felis domestica. So we can get the biological names of living things from taxonomy. For example, man is Homo sapiens, domestic cat is Felis domestica. And this system of naming is what is referred to as binomial nomenclature. And when I say binomial nomenclature, we are talking of 2 names. One is the generic name and the other is the species name. So Homo, as in man, is the generic name, while sapiens is the species name. Felis is the generic name of domestic cat, while domestica is the species name. So this is what binomial nomenclature is all about. So like I said, living organisms are classified into 7 taxa. This is very important. And as we progress from kingdom to the species, the number of organisms start decreasing. And where we have the largest number of organisms is in the kingdom, while the taxa where we have the smallest or the least number of organisms is in the species. And we can use this acronym, or this mnemonic rather, to remember the 7 taxa. King Philip came over for good soup. The king is for the kingdom, Philip is for the phylum, came is for class, over is for order, the 4 is for the family, the good is for the genus, while the soup is for the species. So having known all this, let's look at this number 1 2008 JAM question. In terms of the number of individuals, which of the following taxa is most inclusive? In terms of the number of individuals, which of the following taxa is most inclusive? So the 7 taxa that we have are the kingdom, the phylum, the class, order, family, the genus, and the species. So like I said, as we progress from the kingdom to the species, the number of organisms they start decreasing. And where we have the largest number of organisms is in the kingdom. So the question is, in terms of the number of individuals, which of the following taxa is most inclusive? Is most inclusive, that means contains most or more number of organisms. So if we look at these options here, we have order, family, class, and species. So which of them comes first? So if we observe very well, class comes first before order, comes first before family, and comes first before species. So where we have the number, or where we have more number of organisms from this option, is in the class. So in terms of the number of individuals, which of the following taxa is most inclusive? So the taxa that is most inclusive here, or in other words, that contains more number of organisms, is the class. So this is the correct answer to this JAM question. This is another JAM question from the year 2015, and the question is, the lowest unit of classification is the. So like I've said before, living things are classified into 7 taxa. We have the kingdom, the phylum, the class, the order, the family, the genus, and the species. So the lowest unit of classification is the. Is it the class? No. Is it the genus? No. Is it the phylum? No. Is it the species? Yes. Where we have the least number of organisms is in the species. So the lowest unit of classification, the smallest, the least unit of classification is actually the species. So this is the correct answer to this 2015 JAM question. Then I also have another question here. It's an echo question actually, in the year 2009. And the question is, the basic unit of classification of living things is the. So the basic unit is, in other words, the smallest unit of classification. Basic, when we're talking of basic simply means smallest. So the smallest unit of classification, or the basic unit of classification of living things, is the. So is it the class? No. Is it the genus? No. Is it the kingdom? No. Is it the phylum? No. Is it the species? Yes. The species is where we have the least, the smallest, and the basic number of organisms. So the species is the basic unit of classification of living things. So the basic unit of classification of living things is the species.